Hey, very good morning, students. Let us see the introduction of sequential logic circuit. We know logic circuit is of two types, combinational logic circuit and sequential logic circuit. Combinational logic circuit is a device whose present output depends upon the present inputs. Okay, so example is a half adder. It has two inputs A and B. Adder does addition function. It adds two inputs A and B and produce sum and a carry. So the present output depends upon the present input. Imagine my present input is 1, 0. My present input A is 1 and 0. If 1 is added with 0, I get sum 1 and carry 0. So I get sum 1 and carry 0. So what is the half adder? Half adder is a circuit whose output depend upon the present input. So it belongs to which family? Combinational logic circuit family. Various examples of combinational logic circuit is half adder, full adder, subtractor circuits, encoder, decoder, multiplexer, demultiplexer, and magnitude comparator. Now our objective is to look into what is sequential logic circuit. The sequential logic circuit is different from combinational logic circuit. Combinational logic circuit is a circuit whose output, present output depends upon present input. Whereas sequential logic circuit is a circuit whose present output not only depends on present input but also on the previous output. So, sequential logic circuit has two inputs. One is present input, other one is previous output. Okay, let us see the example of sequential logic circuit. Decimal counter is a very good example for sequential logic circuit. What is the job of a counter? Counter is used to count from 0 to 9. So every time it adds 1 to the previous output. That is a function of a counter. It always counts from 0 to 9. Let us see an example of a counter. Let us imagine this sequential logic circuit to be a counter. Okay, there are two inputs, we know. The output depends upon present input, previous output. There are two inputs. Make sure that the counter at time t0, it means initial time, first time what happens, my previous output will be 0. We don't know what was the previous output. So initially previous output would be 0. At any point of time, my present input is 1 for a counter. At any point of time, present input is 1. So let us see what counter does. Counter, every time it adds 1 to the previous output. So every time it adds 1 to the previous output. What is the previous output? I said at time t0, previous output is 0. Consider, imagine it to be 0. So 1 plus 0 is 1. So present output is 1. At time t0, initially, always I made present input as what? All ones. And initially at time t0, what is my previous output? Is 0. So it is 0. What is the job of a counter? Counter every time adds 1 to the previous output. It is adding 1 to the previous output. What is previous output? 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. So my present output becomes what? 1. My present output is 1. That 1 is passing through this wire and reaching the memory. So here memory is used to store that present output. This output is storing in memory and that is fed back to as an input of this circuit. So you tell me at time t1, next instant of time, always present input is 1. Now can you see your previous output from 0, initial state 0, it has changed to 1, right? Now what happens? Your present input is 1, previous output is 1. What is the job of a counter? Counter is to add 1 to previous output. So it is adding 1 to previous output. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now my present output is what? 2. That output 2 is passing through the memory. So here the memory is storing what? 2 and feeding back to the circuit. So this is how the combinational circuit, sequential logic circuit works. In sequential logic circuit, the output depends upon present input as well as previous output. Where are we storing this previous output? We are storing the previous output in a memory element. This memory can be a latch or a flip-flop. Latch and flip-flops are memory elements which is used to store the data. One bit information. It can store single bit information. It can be either 0 or 1. So latches and flip-flops are basic memory elements for storing information. Point 1. Latch or flip-flop are the basic memory element. These elements are used to store what? Information. That information can be either 0 or 1. One latch or flip-flop, any one latch or a flip-flop is used to store only one bit information. If I need to store 0, 0, 2 bits, I need 2 flip-flops. If I want to store 3 bits, I need 3 flip-flops. So one latch or a flip-flop can store only one bit information. What is the difference between a latch and flip-flop? If both are used to store information, single bit information, then what is the difference? Before saying the difference, let us understand these latches and flip-flops are several types. They are SR type, D type, JK type and T type. There are 4 types of latches and flip-flops. SR, D, JK and T. Here there is an example how it looks. This is an example for latch which is S and R type. S and R type latch. This is an example of flip-flop which belongs to what type? T type. Can you see it belongs to T type? What is the difference between a latch and flip-flop? Elementary level difference is in latch, the output depends upon the input. If my input changes, my output will also change. I repeat, in latch. Can you see? In the latch, the output changes immediately when the input changes. So my output will change immediately when my input changes. Whereas in flip-flop, the case is not so. The output will change only if the clock signal changes. So output doesn't have any impact on input. Output will change only when the clock signal changes. That is the difference between a latch and a flip-flop. Latch and flip-flop both are memory elements used to store single bit information. Whereas in latch there is no clock. When the output of a latch changes whenever there is a change in inputs. Whereas in flip-flop the output changes whenever there is a change in clock signal. That is the elementary difference between latch and a flip-flop. Any one of them, either latch or flip-flop, is used as a memory element to store the output. Clear? So what is a combination logic circuit? Combination logic circuit is a circuit which the circuit present output, the present output of the circuit depends mainly on present input as well as past output or previous output. To store the present output, we need a memory element. So we can use either latch or flip-flop for storing. This is a basic introduction about sequential logic circuit. In the next video, we will see about latches. In latches, in specific, we will see about SR latch. Thank you.